On April 6, 2020, a new streaming service launched. It had raised $1.75 billion from almost every major studio in Hollywood. Its founders were Jeffrey Katzenberg, the man behind DreamWorks Animation, and Meg Whitman, the former CEO of eBay and Hewlett-Packard. Its content budget dwarfed most competitors at launch. Its roster included Steven Spielberg, Idris Elba, Liam Hemsworth, Jennifer Lopez, Chrissy Teigen, and LeBron James. It was called Quibi. The name was short for Quick Bites. By October 21, 2020, 107 days after launch, Quibi announced it was shutting down. The company returned what remained of investor money. The content it had produced, hundreds of hours of original programming, was sold off. Most of it has never been seen by anyone. $1.75 billion. 6 months. Gone. This is the story of how two of the most experienced executives in media convinced the entire entertainment industry to fund a product that almost no one wanted, and why none of them saw it coming. The thesis behind Quibi was, on its face, reasonable. People watch video on their phones. The time they spend on their phones is fragmented. Commutes, queues, lunch breaks, short bursts of attention rather than long viewing sessions. Netflix and HBO are built for the couch. No one had built something specifically for the 5 to 10 minute window. Jeffrey Katzenberg's insight was that premium content, professionally produced, high budget, genuinely cinematic, had never been designed for that window. YouTube had short-form video, but it was user-generated. TikTok had short-form video, but it was 15 seconds. Nobody had brought Hollywood production values to mobile-native short content. Quibi would fill that gap. Episodes would be 7 minutes or under. Content would be filmed to work in both portrait and landscape mode simultaneously, a patented technology they called turnstile. The talent would be A-list. The production budgets would be comparable to premium cable. The logic was sound. The market analysis was thorough. Katzenberg presented it to investors with the authority of someone who had built 3 of the most successful entertainment companies in history. The investors wrote checks. All of them wrote checks. Disney, NBCUniversal, Sony, Alibaba, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. The $1.75 billion came together before a single episode had been produced. Quibi launched on April 6, 2020. 8 days earlier, on March 19th, the state of California had issued a stay-at-home order. By launch day, most of the United States was under some form of lockdown instruction. The entire product thesis, that people would consume short content in the fragmented moments between activities, had evaporated overnight. There were no commutes. There were no queues. There were no lunch breaks outside the home. People who were stuck at home were watching television on television. Netflix added 15.8 million subscribers in the first quarter of 2020. Disney Plus added 7.9 million. People were home, on the couch, watching long-form content on the biggest screen they owned. Quibi was a mobile-only product. It could not be cast to a television. It could not be shared with a family. It was designed for the one place people weren't, outside. Katzenberg and Whitman acknowledged the timing. They called it a big swing taken at exactly the wrong moment. They were not wrong. But the pandemic had also revealed something that the timing alone could not explain. Even when people downloaded the app to try it, they weren't staying. Quibi had content problems that existed independently of the pandemic. The episodes were short. This created a structural problem that Quibi never solved. A 7-minute episode of prestige television is not prestige television. It is a teaser for prestige television. The pacing, the character development, the tension, all of the things that make premium content compelling, require time to build. 7 minutes is not enough. The original content that Quibi produced was widely reviewed as expensive and mediocre. The more ambitious scripted content felt truncated, like watching scenes from a show rather than a show. There was also a fundamental sharing problem. The viral mechanics of streaming in 2020 were built on screenshots and clips. When someone watched something funny or moving, they shared it. Quibi actively prevented screenshots. You could not share a Quibi clip to Twitter or Instagram. You could not tell someone to watch a moment. You could only tell them to watch the whole thing. In the attention economy, content that cannot be shared is content that cannot spread. The app had 910,000 downloads in its first week. By June, 90 days after launch, it had approximately 2.9 million active subscribers. Against a target of 7.4 million subscribers in year one and a break-even point of 9 million, this was a catastrophic shortfall. Katzenberg's public response to the failure was notable for what it revealed about how Quibi's leadership understood the problem. In interviews through the summer of 2020, Katzenberg attributed the failure almost entirely to the pandemic. If COVID hadn't happened, he suggested, Quibi would have worked. The product was right, the timing was wrong. This explanation was challenged almost immediately. Quibi could have added a TV casting feature. It added one in May, 6 weeks after launch. But 6 weeks in the streaming market is years in viewer habit formation. By the time casting worked, most people who had tried the app had already made their decision. The sharing restriction was a deliberate product decision that predated COVID by years. It was a rights protection mechanism. Katzenberg knew it limited virality. He chose it anyway. The content problems, the format mismatch between prestige production and short-form consumption, were structural. They were visible in the pilot data before launch. The data suggested they were not commercially viable. The launch happened anyway. The pandemic accelerated Quibi's death. It did not cause it. On October 21, 2020, Quibi announced it was shutting down immediately. The announcement came via a letter from Katzenberg and Whitman. They said they had exhausted efforts to find a buyer. They had approached Apple, Facebook, Snap, and NBCUniversal as potential acquirers. None of them were interested. The content library, 75 shows, 8,500 episodes of short-form programming, was sold to Roku in January 2021 for what was reported to be well under $100 million. Quibi had spent more than that on a single show. Employees received severance. The offices were closed. The apps were removed from the App Store. The fastest collapse of a billion-dollar startup in entertainment history took exactly 197 days from launch to announcement of closure. Jeffrey Katzenberg, in a final interview, said, "I attribute everything that has gone wrong to COVID, but we've also not created the must-see show." Both things were true. Only one of them was COVID's fault. The Quibi story is often told as a story about bad luck, a product that launched into a pandemic that destroyed its core use case. That reading is too simple. Quibi failed for 3 reasons that existed before March 2020. The first was format confusion. The product tried to be 2 things at once, mobile native in format, but Hollywood in prestige. Those 2 things are intention. Mobile native content is fast, reactive, and shareable. Hollywood prestige content is slow, immersive, and owned. Quibi was neither. It was too premium to be disposable and too short to be prestige. The second was the walled garden. Quibi could not be shared, clipped, discussed, or discovered through social media in the way every other streaming product can. In an environment where social sharing is the primary growth mechanism for media, this was a structural handicap that no amount of marketing spend could overcome. The third was overconfidence. Katzenberg and Whitman had decades of successful experience in adjacent industries. They interpreted that experience as validation for a product that had never been tested at scale with real users. The $1.75 billion was raised on reputation and logic, not evidence. When the evidence arrived, in the download numbers, in the churn data, in the reviews, the shutdown followed within months. The pandemic was the accelerant. The fire was already there. Quibi is gone. Its patents, its technology, and its content are owned by other companies. The turnstile technology, the dual-format video system it spent years developing, was sold and has not been widely deployed since. The investors lost the majority of their capital. The reported return to shareholders was less than 10 cents on the dollar. What Quibi left behind, beyond the losses, is one of the cleanest case studies in modern business history of what happens when the confidence of experienced people substitutes for the validation of real ones. Jeffrey Katzenberg built DreamWorks from scratch. He understood animation. He understood studio politics. He understood deal-making at the highest level. He did not understand how people in 2020 used their phones, not in the ways that mattered for Quibi. He built the product he believed in rather than the product users were demonstrating through their behavior on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram that they actually wanted. $1.75 billion went into testing a thesis that could have been tested for much less. The result was known within days of launch. The shutdown took another 6 months. The fastest collapse in streaming history was also, in some ways, one of the most predictable.